everybody. Welcome to this webinar on preparing for the California bar exam and strategies for taking it remotely. Thanks for being here. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. And after I am done going through the presentation and showing you my tips, I will look at those questions and see anything that hasn't been answered, if there's anything new there. Quick intro, my name is Maureen. I'm the founder and creator of BarMD. We're a full service bar prep company. So anything you need for the bar exam for California or most other jurisdictions, we can help you with. We have books and full courses and all sorts of stuff that can help you, and a lot of really good stuff for this, final month of prep that we are in. So let's get into it. And a lot of today is going to just be hands-on demonstration. So just FYI. So today we're going to talk about some strategies for taking the multiple choice remotely without hard copies. We're going to talk about strategies for writing essays remotely, again, without hard copies, and strategies for writing the PT remotely without hard copies. So everything is basically just strategy focused. I'm not focused on teaching you really how to do, write an essay, how to do a PT. It's focused on really, how do you do this in this new environment where you're not going to have hard copies? So that's my focus. And I will primarily focus on the performance test because that seems to be the thing that I think is going to be the most difficult with the changes to the exam, with particularly not being able to have it side by side. So not being able to have your answer side by side open with the file and library. So that's really what I'm going to focus in on. And I'm going to walk through examples for each of these. So let's see here. So first, we're going to talk about the multiple choice. So some reading, the biggest thing to me about the multiple choice and the remote environment is that you can't mark it up. And marking things up is incredibly, incredibly helpful. So it's really that you have to be very on point with your reading comprehension and paying attention, because that is what happens primarily when you are reading a multiple choice question and marking it up. So there's three things that you can do while you are, there's three things that you can do to really help improve your reading comprehension that I'm going to walk you through. So there's sub-vocalization is the first one. So everybody, you can tell me in the chat, when you're reading something out loud, you place emphasis on different words, or if I am reading out loud, I place emphasis on certain words when I am teaching, and especially I'm going to give effect to punctuation, and I'm going to emphasize adjectives, adverbs, ands, and ors. So when I vocalize, I place emphasis on those things. So you're not allowed to speak when you are in the exam, even if you're at home doing it alone. There's no talking aloud. So sub-vocalization is reading it in your head, but reading it as though you were reading it out loud. So I'm going to demonstrate this. So that's one thing that we are going to do. And you'll notice, and I want you all to practice this over the next few weeks just to kind of get used to it. It helps to sort of slow you down and helps to see what words and signals are important. So that's one thing. Two, use your mouse as your guide. So can you guys see my mouse over the PowerPoint? Can you guys see me moving that around? Yes. Hey, Nick. So you're going to literally use your mouse and move it across the word as you are reading it. And it sounds silly, but it's incredibly helpful, because part of the problem is I don't know about y'all, but I'm a pretty fast reader. I'm a pretty fast reader. And when I am reading something, if I'm reading for fun, I tend to read sort of like the terms and conditions that are read in a commercial where they're reading all the warnings for a medication. So I'm stuff like use mouse to guide, note taking, blah, 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 going really, 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 really quickly. So if you take and use your mouse as your guide, it'll help to slow you down and focus on the word that you are reading as you go. And I used to do this in practice too, except I would use a ruler to keep me focused on the line that I was supposed to be focused on. So you can't do that on the exam. So you can use your mouse to help you. And then also use your note taking. So you can use your white erase board and your marker and your little eraser. First of all, I'm actually going to turn the PowerPoint off for 1 second. Very quickly, There are 3 different supplies, 3 different tools that I'm going to be using throughout this. So Anna, who is here, told me that the bar examiner switched it. You can have a 9x12 white erase board. And she recommended this one, and I love it. And I put a little, like, on Amazon, just I like linked like the 3 products that I like. So this is a 9x12 red erase board. I like it because I'm really sensitive to my like hands touching things. And I didn't like a big thick edge around the border because I don't want my hand rubbing on it. It just bothers me. So this is a really nice board. These are white erase markers that are really nice because they're fine point. So, and you want a lot of them. I ordered a pack of, I think, 15. I think there's 12 or 15 in it. And so there's a ton of them. There's a ton of them. You want to do that because white erase markers fatten out over time. So you want to just be able to kind of go through them. And then also you can use one of these brick white erase, you know, whatever, white erase erasers things. And I would get one, I got a box of 4 of these. You really only need one of these, but it just came as a box of 4 for like $5. So I put everything so that if you guys want to get these same things, they're pretty inexpensive, but I put them here so that you could get these 3 things. So it's a pack of the markers, the white erase board, and the little brick. I like all 3 of these a lot. So just wanted to mention that these are the things that I absolutely recommend that you get. Okay, so let's go back. So, and one person asked in the chat, how you have limited time, how can you go slow with a mouse? You have limited time, yes, but you can still give it, give the questions the full, minute and a half, minute 48 that you get. It's that you don't want to go through the question in 30 seconds and have to reread it 3 times. So I want you to not reread a multiple choice question. I want you to read it accurately and precisely the first time. And these will help you do that, particularly with those long questions. So let's do a little bit of practice with that. So here I have, these are just the practice questions from the CalBar. So here, right here we have, oops, give me 1 second, I'm having a little technical issue. Here we have, it says, first, you always start with the call of the question. Was the president's initial action of deploying U.S. forces constitutional? So it says a U.S. naval base located on the coast of State A suffered a sudden attack launched by a foreign nation that resulted in several casualties and significant damage to the ships docked at the base. I'm like, okay, it's a naval base, it's federal property. I know I'm in con law. I know I'm talking about executive powers. So I'm thinking about all of those issues. The base was one of the largest in the country and served as an artery for all inland military operations. Within an hour of the attack and without prior congressional authorization, I'm like, well, congressional authorization you need for declarations of war. So it's a declaration of war. The president responded by increasing air defenses and naval presence at all U.S. military bases and deploying forces domestically to retaliate and ward off further attacks. So do you see that I am reading it? I'm not reading it really quickly. I'm moving my mouse along as I read to focus on the word that I am reading, to give effect to the punctuation, and to emphasize, I tend to emphasize adjectives, adverbs, state of mind words, dates, etc. So, was the president's initial action of deploying U.S. forces constitutional? A, no, because Congress alone may determine any military action. So, well, at first you want to predict the answer. So here I'm like, all right, president can do that. It's within his power to do that. It's not a declaration of war. You're just basically commander-in-chief of the military and the president is permitted to do that. So without congressional approval. So A, no, because Congress alone may determine any military action. So I know that that's not right. No, because Congress must authorize any military action by the president within 1 hour of the action. I know that that is incorrect because there's no 1 hour requirement. And just as a note on the first one, any military action, you don't need it for any military action. The word any is just far too overbroad in A. C, so I think it's a yes, but I want to still go through every option. Yes, because the president has the power to repel sudden attacks. I know that he does, or, he or she, but because the president has power to repel sudden attacks. So yes, that looks like a good choice. I'm not striking it. The president does have this power, and this sort of mirrors what's in the language, which is why I place emphasis, because they suffered a sudden attack. And D, yes, because the president has the plenary power granted as commander-in-chief to protect US soil. So this is just a little bit overbroad. You don't have plenary power to protect US soil. There's some things where there are restrictions. So D just looks like it overstates the law. So I'm going to pick C. So that's going to be my correct answer. So I'm going to read through another one and sort of move my mouse along. And actually, let's see. Let's go to one that's a little bit tougher. I want to do one where you really need to take notes. I know that you can't strike out answers on the exam. That there's not really a great solution to, truly. So you're going to have to just like really do it as you go. You might take notes, like not A, not B, or, something like that as you go. But honestly, there's not a great option for that. So let's see. I'm just trying to find a good one for note taking. Let's see. Okay. So let me just double check something really quickly. So we're going to look at this one real quick. So I'm going to take some notes as I'm going, and then I'm going to show you what my notes look like. So let me actually, can everybody, let's see. I want you all, I'm going to see if I can paste this in the chat for you all to look up. I put an image in this, in the chat if you guys want to click on it, because I'm going to switch over to so you guys can see my note taking as we go. All right, you guys should be able to see my desk. It's a little bit messy. It's actually really not, but it looks like it is. Okay, can you guys see the photo of the question that I dropped in the chat? All right. So this is how I might just take notes while I'm doing this. So police officers arrested a man they believed recently committed an armed robbery. So he's under arrest. So I'm just making notes. The man was placed in the back seat of the car and given Miranda. Miranda's check. The man said he wished to have a lawyer present during any police questioning. So invocation of Miranda. As the officers drove the man to the police station, they engaged in conversation between themselves in the front seat. So he's invoked Miranda, so they have to stop questioning. One of the officers mentioned, let me zoom in. One of the officers mentioned that there was serious concern because the weapon used in the robbery had not been recovered. So the officers are talking, but this is something that's likely to elicit an incriminating response. You're appealing to somebody's sort of moral sense. So there is an interrogation. So I'm going to say there's a violation. There's a violation of Miranda. So he further stated that if the weapon was hidden near the scene of the robbery, then it was in the vicinity of a local nursery school. So they're really pulling at this guy's, hoping that there's an emotional, that he gives up because of the emotion. The other officer voiced a concern that a young child might discover the weapon and accidentally fire it. After hearing the officer's conversation, the man stated that he had hidden the gun near the nursery school beneath some bushes. So he makes an incriminating statement. Is this voluntary? No, it's an interrogation. And he had already invoked Miranda. So this is totally illegal. Totally illegal. So there's a violation. Prior to the man's trial for armed robbery, the man's lawyer made a motion to suppress the man's statement about the gun. So should the court grant the motion to suppress the man's statement about the gun? So A, no, because the man impliedly waived his Miranda rights by speaking to the police. That is incorrect because he invoked his right to counsel and they have to stop questioning. They don't have to immediately give him a lawyer, but they have to stop the questioning. B, no, because the man voluntarily admitted where he had hidden the gun. That is also incorrect because it wasn't voluntary because he did it in response to their questioning in violation of his right to Miranda, right to counsel. C, yes, because the conversation between the police officers occurred while the man was in custody. It's not just because he's in custody that understates the requirement. It's because he was, it's because it was an unlawful interrogation. Or D, so, sorry, just one second. Yes, because the conversation between the police officers amounted to unlawful questioning of the man, and that is our correct answer. So I like to take notes during Crim Pro, and yeah, this is Rhode Island Venus. It gives us that in the answers. But yeah, this is absolutely a violation. I like to track stuff obviously for property, for contracts, for civil procedure, and a lot of the time for Crim Pro because there's so much that's going on that often you need to know, okay, is there a violation here, 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 here? So in multiple different places. And then the reason I like the big brick is because it's just quick and easy to erase it. I had one of those markers that had the eraser on the top and it just takes too long to erase it. So that's nice and quick. So that's some of our tips for just some quick tips for multiple choice. So yeah, some note taking. All right, essays. So essays, and I have heard people say this, the bar examiners said this themselves, that they basically recommend that you type the answer, that you type it into the notes option, because that's going to be a bit easier to access while you're looking at the fact pattern. Whereas the actual setup for the exam has the fact pattern on top and just a small spot for your answer on the bottom, and you can't resize it, which is incredibly obnoxious and maddening. So I'm not a big fan of that at all. And yeah, that's something though we cannot change, at least right now. So we have to just figure out what to do. So I'm a big fan, and I used to do this all the time before. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of this, of just diagramming out your essays, and you can use a whiteboard for this. So I wouldn't bother using a bunch of different colors, but you can. I just think it's a little bit of a waste of time to do that because time is really precious on the bar exam. So one, you're going to use your whiteboard. I'm going to show you how to do that. Two, understand how the essays are put together. You have probably noticed, or if you haven't, I'll tell you now, the essays tend to be put together very logically, where if you have 3 or 4 calls, the first paragraph goes to the first call, second paragraph goes to the second call, third to the third call, fourth to the fourth call. Not always, but very, very frequently, they are put together that way. So I'm going to show you what to do here. I'm going to walk through a bit of an essay. Yeah, I think that you can post the question into the note section by using copy. Yes, I think that you can do that. So somebody said a lot of people are scared that the copy and paste feature won't work, or that after copying, it will delete and not paste below. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to really practice doing it both ways and see what works for you. I personally would probably just diagram and take notes, but that's me. And I know that the copy and paste feature can be a little bit glitchy, but we are going to have to rely on it and have some faith that it will work well. I know it was a different software when the exam was remote in 2020, 2021. However, for 98% of people, it worked fine. And I know that there were people that it didn't work well for, and that's a bummer and it sucks. And there's not a lot I can say about that. So just that I hope that that's not you. But I am aware of the sort of glitchiness that it can be. So and for a lot of people are asking about the, copy and paste. You could not do it for the PT in the mock exam. So anybody that's worried about that, it's supposed to work when you're in the actual exam. And if it doesn't work, tell your proctor. So one thing I want to just sort of pause and say, this is really important, is, and this to everybody, if something is not working properly, test it at the very beginning and immediately tell your proctor and call tech support. Do not waste your exam time trying to worry about it or trying to get it to do anything. This is just I say it's you always want to be nice because this is the bar exam and they take it seriously if you're abusive to them, if they consider it that. But if something is not working, assert your rights. So be this is not functioning. If your proctor is messing with you, anything like that, call tech support and pause. And I would literally, I would have the tech support number saved somewhere in your phone, on quick speed dial. So save that number and have it ready to go if you need it. So if you have a tech problem, you should be able to do that, or you can immediately talk to your proctor. Yeah, I know that during the mock exam, during the exams before, if you have a tech problem, you have to call. So I'm not sure if you talk out loud or you use the chat window. I think that you can talk to your proctor, but I would clarify that. And, I will look into that. If you guys send me some of these, we can send questions to the bar. And I think on the FAQ, there's probably a tech support, what if I have a tech issue during the exam? There's probably instructions there. So be very familiar with those in case that happens. So That's what I'm going to say about that. Yeah. I wish I could go in there and test all of this stuff out with you guys and for you guys. And I can't because I'm not taking the exam. So, all right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So I'm going to do an essay. I'm going to drop the essay in the chat that we're going to look at because I'm going to share my camera again. I'm going to try to get it framed a little bit better. One thing also, just with copy paste, know the shortcuts for it. You know, if you're on a PC, I think it's Control C, Control V, and I'm on a Mac, so I have Command C, Command V, Command C copies, Command V pastes. So the bar examiners were very adamant that you should be using those shortcuts. So I'm getting a ton of questions about that stuff, and like that's some basic stuff that y'all need to learn how to do and make sure that you are good at doing it. I don't know what to do if there's a fire alarm. I hope it doesn't happen. But yeah, I haven't put it up yet. So I'm dropping the question in the chat. But everybody can download it. Well, actually, I don't think you can. It's the July 2010 torts question. And I'm going to make it so that people cannot type in the chat. If you have a question that you want answered that is substantive, put it in the Q&A. And I will answer it at the end of it. But for right now, I want to make sure that last message is the fact pattern from the screen. Actually, I'm going to walk through the fact pattern first. So this is the fact pattern. This is the fact pattern. So I'm going to talk about it here, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like to take notes. So under what theory or theories, if any, might patron bring an action for damages against homeowner, burglar, or cinema? Discuss. So a homeowner kept a handgun on his bedside table in order to protect himself against intruders. A statute provides that all firearms must be stored in a secure container that is fully enclosed and locked. So I'm thinking negligence per se. Burglar broke into homeowner's house while homeowner was out and stole the handgun. Okay, so he breaks in. Burglar subsequently used the handgun in an attack on patron in a parking lot belonging to cinema. Patron had just exited cinema around midnight after viewing a late movie. During the attack, burglar approached patron and demanded that she hand over her purse. Patron refused. Burglar drew the handgun, pointed it at patron, and stated, "You made me mad, so now I'm going to shoot you." Patron fainted out of shock and suffered a concussion. Burglar took her purse and fled, but was later apprehended by the police. Cinema had been aware of several previous attacks on its customers in the parking lot at night during the past several years, but provided no lighting or security guard. So, like I mentioned, these are organized nicely. There's 3 different defendants: homeowner, burglar, cinema. Most of the facts about homeowner are here. There's some facts about cinema. It's just, you know, cinema's land. But we want to know the claims against burglar, which is mostly going to be here and also here. So most of paragraph 2 is about burglar. And then paragraph 3 is largely about cinema. So when I said that they're mostly organized pretty nicely like this, that's what I mean. So I'm going to switch over and I'm going to walk through the fact pattern again. I placed it in the chat if you want to have it on the screen, if you want to have it open and look at it on your own while I go through it. So let's see. Okay, you guys should be able to see that okay? So I'm going to turn my white erase board. You can see the nice ring on my desk. I'm going to turn this over. Let me know if at any point you can't see the handwriting well enough. So I'm going to just do here. The 1 is against homeowner, right? And homeowner is probably negligence. So homeowner, I have duty, and I'm going to do this. This is my shorthand notes. I'm going to walk you through it. Duty, we have Andrews and Cardozo. I'm going to do the standard. Here we also have negligence per se. I'm going to do causation, and I'm going to do 1 line each for actual and proximate. Damages, and then any defenses. I don't think there are any. And then I'm going to do burglar. So this is 2, burglar. For burglar, it's a bunch of intentional torts. Lori, I don't know if you meant to raise your hand, but if you just wait till the end of it, we can get to it. So burglar, what I saw here is a bunch of intentional torts. So there's an assault, there's battery, there's IIED, there's trespass to chattels and conversion. There's also probably false imprisonment here as well, because he pointed a gun at her and so she can't go anywhere. And then also for here, 3, cinema is also negligence. So I'm just going to use the same structural setup that I have here on the left for a homeowner for cinema. So I'm going to grab a different color just because maybe it'll be helpful. I'm just going to do it visually. I don't think you necessarily need it. So as I'm going through the facts, then I'm just going to take my facts. And just as an FYI, like this black pen, I've just been using it for a few days and it's already starting to like flatten out and get thicker. When I first started using it, it was a lot finer like this. So this is a brand new one. This is why I recommend that you get a lot of markers, a lot of white erase markers. So for homeowner duty, Andrews, I'm just going to put a check. And under Andrews, a duty is owed to everybody. Under Cardozo, there's 3 things you want to think about. Where is the zone of danger? It's anywhere with the gun. So where gun can go, you don't have to really write that out. I'm just writing it for you all. I'm going to zoom in at all while I do this. Was the plaintiff within the zone of danger? Yes, it was used against her. And how did defendant create the zone of danger? He left the gun on the nightstand. On nightstand. The standard here is just an RPP. Negligence per se. So I just put the 3 arms out there because I know those are 3 different elements that I need to talk about for negligence per se. So is it the type of harm? You know, this is a gun. She was threatened with the gun. What do you think they're thinking about when they do this type of statute? They're probably thinking of a gunshot wound is what I would imagine. So I'm like type, you know, GSW question mark, but it's also a threat. Is she the type of person? It's anybody that could be injured with a gun, injured by the gun. And then did they violate it? Yes. Is there actual causation here? Yes, but for the homeowner leaving the gun. So I'm just going to say yes. But proximate cause. Here you have an intervening actor. So you have burglar. So what is burglar first? Generally, an intervening actor is going to cut off the chain of causation. But here, is it foreseeable that burglar, you know, might steal a gun and take it and use it to commit a crime? Maybe. So I think there's, you know, at least a counter argument to be made for proximate cause. So I'm going to put a little asterisk there. And then damages. Yes, she suffered a concussion plus the theft. And then defensive, there's just none. So I just sort of put shorthand notes in here for each of these. And part of the reason for doing this is because then I remember the facts really well while I'm going through and looking at them. So it's going to make it easier to remember the facts. You can also, you know, another thing you can do is you can just sort of write this out, sort of decide your conclusions. The point is you want to get your thinking done. And then, you know, you could also have just said, you know, like paragraph 1, paragraph 1, paragraph 1, you know, where are you going to get the facts, and then just copy and paste into your answer, and then just, you know, use that a little bit in your answer if you wanted to do that. So you don't have to take detailed notes like this, but just because the point is, I want you to be able to really focus on thinking through the fact pattern and not be focused on the copy paste and all of that and figuring that stuff out. I want you to really just be focused on figuring out the issues, figuring out the answer. Does that make sense? I'll turn the chat back on. And everybody tell me in the chat, does that make sense? And I have taught this to people for years. And like, I have had people do this when I taught in law schools, and maybe the note taking looks a little bit daunting. And I can understand and completely appreciate that. You are supposed to figure out what to write before you write it. Previously, like if you did it remotely or if you've been practicing now, you know, you might have been, you know, looking at the fact pattern and typing it in. But because it's not visible, I just want you to be able to focus and not spend all your time scrolling back and forth. That's the point, is to not spend all of that time scrolling back and forth. That's what I don't want you wasting time doing. So that's really the point of it. And I promise you, I have done a test when I was teaching in the law school environment. I would give my students 20 minutes to read, and I've given them this exact fact pattern. I gave them 20 minutes to read an outline, figure out all of the issues, put the facts in here, do this for all 3 issues. Do this for all 3 issues. And then in 20 minutes, and then I would take their notes away. So like you then wouldn't even have this. You wouldn't even have this. I would take it away, and then they would be able to, and they actually did better. Because it really does help to commit it to your short-term memory. This is the reason somebody mentioned that you might run out of space on the whiteboard. So do you use your notepad? that's why I recommend getting so many markers. And like, I'm writing a little bit bigger than I might. And I've got a lot of space on my notepad left. So there's still a lot of space there. Because cinema, I'm not going to write the elements out. I'm just going to do it in a different color. So like, yeah, check here, causation, or I'm sorry, Cardozo, this is yes, easy, standard, RPP, negligence per se, we don't have here. And this, but we do have a landowner. And here it's a duty owed to invitees. So I'm just, mentioning that there. Causation, yes, again, there's, proximate cause, but it's burglar there. So easy counter argument. Damages. So the whole thing is, did they breach? So, oh my God, I didn't write breach in here. Silly Maureen. Ooh, so you do silly things in time pressure. So breach, I'm going to say yes, right? No security, no lighting. And that's basically it. So, and then burglar, assault, there's actually 2 assaults, pointing the gun, and then the statement, battery, she hit the ground. Also, maybe a battery when he took her purse, because that's a touching of something intimately associated with her. IIED, he threatened with a gun. Trespass to chattels and conversion, he took her purse, but it was recovered. False imprisonment, pointed the gun at her. So I got it all on there. And I did this all in less than 20 minutes. Granted, I know this essay like the back of my hand. I've taught it like, I don't know, hundreds of times, but this is also one of the craziest racehorse essays. So I just try to do it. So that's what I would do. And then I'm going to have this that I'm looking at, and I'm going to be typing in my answers. Does that make sense to everybody? Tell me again in the chat. I just want you all to see this, see how I would do it. And again, just to like put it in here, is these are the various tools. Do you guys think you can do this? I think you can. These are the tools that I'm using. These are the markers that I'm using, and this, and then it erases quickly. Do not, for the love of God, use one of the tiny little erasers that come on top of a pen. It would be a nightmare. Even that, like, I think I'm frustrated that it took as long as it did just now. Thanks, Nick. All right, y'all ready to talk PTs, which is why I think most people are really here. Yes, what I'm saying is type, and yes, you can use different color pens. All right, let me just stop the share for a second. So I think cutting and pasting the question into the notepad, possibly, because if you paste it into the notepad, does that mean that you can then see it better below? Like you can see it, like you can have your answer open and then you can see it better. Whatever makes it so that you can see it the easiest. Yeah, if that's the case, then I would copy the fact pattern into the notepad, and that way you can have that down next to your answer and it's easier to read. Yes, do that by all means. And honest to God, you're supposed to see it side by side, somebody said, but that's not what my experience has not been, that that's what you can see from what I have heard. The notes are on the side by the fact pattern. Yeah. Oh, the notes are on the side by the fact pattern. Yes. And I'm just talking about with your answer. That's all. Yeah. So that's what I suggest to do for the essays. And I wouldn't necessarily copy and paste the facts from the fact pattern into the answer or anything like that. I would just do, I would just outline it like this, and then I would go to write. And that's how I would do it. It's up to you. Yeah, you can copy and paste the fact pattern to the notepad. Somebody said by 1 sentence max, 2 at a time, or it glitches. Yeah, so that's why I wouldn't necessarily do that. I would go through it. I don't want you guys just spending all this time with glitchy stuff. To go through the fact pattern, outline it like I just did, and then go to your answer and start writing. Yeah, on the essays, I would not bother with copy and paste, period. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't. So I would practice doing it using this without copy paste. I would honestly practice that over the next. It's easy to get used to it. It'll feel a little clunky. Give yourself a little bit of grace to let yourself take a little bit longer at first, and then practice it. You will. I promise you, it's not that hard to get it down. I've taught thousands of people how to do this, and it's rarely been an issue. So there is time. So just practice it. I don't have a class that shows how to outline like that, like a specific class. No, I do have I do have things where I've recorded stuff. I have like photos of stuff I've done like that, but I don't have a way to distribute that effectively. Sorry. All right, let's move on to the PT. Can I just pause for 1 minute and grab my water though? It's here, but it's empty, so I'll be right back. So everybody take a breather, grab some water if you need to, and then we're gonna talk PT. All right, you all back? You here? I just needed 1 minute to grab my water. All right, you ready to talk PTs? Yes, yes, good, good, good. Okay, so excited. Good. All right. So the PT. So you're going to use your whiteboard and you're going to outline where you're pulling information from. So I wrote this earlier. And all right. So like, for example, and I am going to walk through and demonstrate this. So as I'm going through, we do a skeletal outline, and this is what I would tell you to do. Like my other videos, this is what you will do. So for whatever the first issue is, you're going to do issue 1. So the rule, maybe for issue 1, the rule comes from the Jones case, and I'm going to note what page it's on and what paragraph I'm pulling it from. And then for Jones, for the rule proof, which is where I pull the information for my analysis, page 1, I'm going to pull it from paragraph 3. When I'm going through the file, I'm going to note where I'm pulling it from. Again, so defendant interviewed, page 2, paragraph 3. If there is a counter argument, I might just make a note of what the counter argument is. And then my conclusion, no liability, right? This is just a random, I was thinking of a fact pattern. Same thing, issue 2. Okay, that comes from the Smith case, page 2, paragraph 3. The analysis comes from page 3, paragraph 2. Maybe the analysis is going to come, so the rule proof, I'm talking about the analysis of the case in the library. That's where that comes from. And the analysis I'm using, maybe it's all the facts are going to come from the newspaper. And in paragraph 3, predominantly. Counter argument, none. And conclusion, there's no defense. For those of you that are familiar with what I teach for the PTs, I talk about the TAPOS in the beginning, just your notes while you are in the task memo. And I would just write those in the top right corner of my white erase board. So that's a sample. Does that make sense? And I'm going to walk you through and demonstrate this. And somebody asked, it will be one continuous set of papers. I think there's the file and the library are in 2 different tabs, and you're gonna have to go back and forth. And the problem is that you will not have your answer visible while the file and the library are visible. So the entire point of doing this, and like why I've practiced doing it this way, is I want you, again, like with the essays, I don't want you focused on like moving stuff around and wasting a bunch of time flipping back and forth between stuff. I want you to be, when you're in the task memo reading it, I want you to focus on identifying the things that you need from the task memo. I want you to follow the steps that I teach. So if you guys have not watched, if you haven't watched my PT videos on YouTube or in my free course, the like free sample material that's on my website, you need to watch it because I teach you how to do this stuff. If you search for BarMD on YouTube and you go to the oldest videos that I have, I teach you how to do a PT without a hard copy. The difference is then you could use different colored highlighters and you can have this, the file library open at the same time. So strategically speaking, this is a little bit different. So it's definitely a little bit different here because of the inability to have your answer open at the same time as the file and library. So that's why I want you to just, when we're in the task memo, we're identifying the TAPOS. When we're in, then, I go through my next steps. And I'm just going to do my skeletal setup. I'm just doing on the white erase board, basically. That's step 2. Step 3 is to skim the file. And then step 4 is to skim/read the library. When you are skimming and reading the library, that is when you create a lot of what you see on the screen, or at least what is there for like R and P. So where am I getting my rules from? Where am I getting the information to draft my rule proofs? And I'm not going to go into what rule proofs are in this. I'm just going to show you where to get the information. My other lectures cover this. And if you have questions about it, I have a book and I have a course, and it's not too late to do them. So just throwing that in there. Does everybody understand this? And I'm going to walk you through doing this with the October 2020 performance test in just a moment. Can everybody confirm in the chat? Understood. Good. Thank you. I don't know why they prohibited it. It's just that their tech wasn't prepped for it. They just weren't thinking. So does everybody feel like they can do this? Does this feel feasible? That's my goal, is for this to feel feasible to do. Oh, hey, Sonia. All right. Yeah, you're bookmarking. That's why I wanted to show you the essay. It's really, really similar. So let me give you all the link to the PT that we are going to look at. I know it can still feel daunting, but you just have to practice it. And Nick, who is here, can tell everybody that if you just practice it, you can get better, right, Nick? So I'm going to make it so y'all can't talk to each other again so that my link stays at the bottom of the chat, because otherwise it disappears for people. I will put my earplug recommendation in the Amazon shop, the ones that I like the best, that I've used for like 15 years now. Okay, so first, this is the PT that we are going to do. It's the October 2020 California PT. This is one of my favorites. All right. These are some doozies of essays too. Okay, so I'm on my task memo. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to take some notes, and then I'm going to show you what my notes look like after I'm done. All right. Okay, I'm going to get a new marker because this one's already a little bit messed up. I actually have like numerous packs of these. Okay, so I just wrote my TAPOS on my white erase board. So Janice Wright, a longtime client. So I like to make a note of who my client is too. And she's a longtime client, so she needs lawyers for a lot of things apparently. Has retained us on a matter concerning unauthorized credit card charges run up by her son Ryan for online purchases connected to an online video gaming website called GamerTracks. At Ryan's request, Janice gave him permission to open an account using her credit card. She told him he could charge no more than $20. He ended up charging $9,000. After receiving her credit card bill, she sent a letter to GamerTracks asking for a reversal of the $8,980 charge. The GamerTracks declined. She would like our help in determining whether she can avoid paying some or all of the charges. So I have already determined that Ryan was able to, and did in fact, enter into a contract with GamerTracks. So that I may discuss this matter with Janice, please prepare a memorandum that answers the following questions. So audience is to my boss. So is Ryan able to disaffirm the contract? If so, did Janice's letter disaffirm the contract for Ryan? And is Janice liable for the $8,980? Okay, so let me show you all what I just did. So I'm doing all of this live with you guys because I want you to see what it looks like, all right? So sorry I have to go back and forth. There's not a way for me to share. Well, I'm just not as savvy as like some online influencers that could probably do this. I wrote in my corner my TAPOS, right? It's objective. I'm writing to my boss. It's a memo. I'm going to organize by the issues given to me in the task memo. No statement of facts. And I wrote that my client is Janice. And then I did this. I set up my skeletal outline. So, and you might actually type up your skeletal outline, but I'm just going to do it here instead of going back and forth. So these are the issues. Can R disaffirm? There's RPACC. Then 2, did the letter disaffirm? Again, RPACC. And 3, is Janice liable? And I put my RPACC. All right. So that's it. So we're still able to do the steps in time. Everybody following along so far? You can type in the chat. Sorry, I like to check in and make sure that not everybody is, that everybody's not lost at any particular point. So I do like to just double check. All right, y'all are good. People are there. Hey, Tamara. Hey, Lori. TAPOS is tone, audience, product, organizing principles and special instructions. So now I'm going to go through, and the point is I want you to be, I want you to avoid the back and forth. That's the whole point, is I want you to be able to focus on thinking. I want you to focus on the thinking and figuring out what you have to do. Okay, so next I do step 3 is I skim through the file. So I'm just looking at this and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to bother with the annotating really, because I just don't, and I will re-show the whiteboard I will reshow it. And you guys are going to get a recording of this sent to you tomorrow at some point, tomorrow afternoon. It's just tough to go back and forth a lot. You will see it again shortly. So I note, okay, here I met with longtime client Janice, and I just skim a little bit. GamerTrack's website allows users to play. So this is just an interview. It looks like some notes from talking to Janice. The GamerTrack's website allows users to buy options. 2 months ago, at Ryan's request, Janice gave Ryan permission. Ryan opened a GamerTrack treasure account. He clicked, I have read. Okay, so Ryan entered the contract. These look like the terms. Okay, and I'm going to read this more closely a little bit later. So I'm just seeing if anything jumps out to me at this point, and nothing really from this document. Okay, here is the letter. Here's the letter, right? And this looks really easy. I'm like, oh, this is the letter that she wrote. I'm probably going to use this, in that second issue. So I'm just going to make a note. Okay, there's a letter that I'm going to use for that. I'm going to make a note. Fine. Okay. And that's it. It's really small, just a little summary of the interview, the task memo, and the letter. That's it. Okay, so now we are in the library, and I see that the library is pretty big. So this can be a little bit daunting, but usually when we have a small file, we usually have a big library. So a little hint when you're in the library is you want to look at how much of the library is dedicated to each issue that you have to deal with, and that will give you a hint as to how big of an issue each of the issues are. So that helps you to triage or determine where the points are. So pay attention to the construction of the library. Also, I notice here that there are 3 cases and 2 statutes. It's not always the case that often if there are 3 issues, there's a case for each issue. So we'll see if that's the case here, but don't depend on that. So you want to obviously just make the determination as you're in it. So as I'm reading a library, when there are statutes and cases, I'm usually just going to skim the titles of the statutes to see what I'm dealing with. Then I'm going to go through the cases, and then I go back to the statutes at the end. Most of the time, the statutes are broken down and written in an easier way in the cases. Not always. Particularly, they don't always do that when there's just one statute that you have to deal with. So a big hint is if you have just one statute, you're probably going to have to do some statutory deconstruction. That is one of the skills they can test you on in a performance test. Not a lot of people like it, but it's definitely there. So let's dig into this. And again, I'm going to take notes on my white erase board, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. And you guys could maybe practice this too as we go along. Feel free to practice it. And also in my book, I do break this stuff down, and you can see my typed up notes. You can see my typed up notes are, it's typed, but you would basically do the same things into your white erase board. So I'm not writing the intro and the conclusion at the very beginning at this point, because you could go into your answer and immediately write it. So that's something that I do generally have people do. That is something I do, often have people do. So, but I'm not going to do the actual typing of my rule. Well, I am going to do some of that, actually. I lied. So let's get into this. So first I see here, these are provisions, and I see, okay, they give me rules on agency. I don't know where this goes yet. Agency defined, actual authority, apparent authority, creation of actual authority, creation of apparent authority, and binding effect. So there's a bunch of statutes, and they're dealing with agency. And then we have the Columbia Family Code. We have the minor's power to contract. We already know that Ryan could enter into the contract. He told us that. But then here we have the minor's power to disaffirm the contract. So that looks like that's the first question. So the minor's power to disaffirm. So let me put that fat pen down. So 6702 and 6703, I'm going to use probably for the minor's power to disaffirm, and then there's the exceptions to the minor's power to disaffirm. So I'm just going to make a note, but I'm going to come back to that. Okay, I get to my first case. So it says, so remember, I don't read, and I don't want you to read all of these introductory fact sections. So, when I skim and read the first line, which is when I skim and just read this first line, I'm saying, is it a fact paragraph? I'm looking for the procedural history so that I can start reading. So by his complaint, Bryce Miller sought judgment against his mother. That's facts. Bryce was born March 11th, 1940. In 1953, Bryce entered into a contract. Okay, that's facts. By this action, okay, now we're getting to some procedural history. Bryce seeks to recover the $26,000 received by Josephine. There can be no doubt that Josephine held this money for Bryce. By her contract with him, she had relinquished any right to any of it. He was entitled to recover all of it, unless Columbia Family Code, you can just say CFC, Section 6703 stood in the way. Under that provision, so here we're talking about Miller. Under that provision, a minor under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for him may contract to pay the reasonable value of things necessary for his support and that of his family, and may not disaffirm such a contract. So it looks like they're talking about the first issue, disaffirm here. So Miller. This being true, it must follow that the minor can authorize the use of money held for him for those purposes and cannot recover the money thus paid out. In entering judgment for Josephine, the trial court found that she expended the $26,000 she had received for herself and for Bryce. That finding, however, was insufficient to support the judgment. The court did not find that Josephine expended the money for herself and for Bryce for things necessary for their support, nor could the court have so found. The evidence showed that at all relevant times, Josephine had an independent and substantial source of income. It showed that she expended the $26,000 she had received, as she herself admitted, for the good things of life, not necessities. So this is the first page. It's the last paragraph. It's paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is Miller. This is page 1, paragraph 4. Okay. So it's for the good things of life, not for necessities. So let's see. Yeah. So there, the minor could disaffirm the contract, right? So it could disaffirm. So I'm going to make a note that I'm going to analogize to Miller, because I think just based on the task memo, do we think that purchases for video games are things necessary for the support of Ryan? No, right? And I know some of you have seen this PT, but yeah, they're definitely not, right? So just based on that, I'm like, all right, I'm using this for the first issue. So I'm going to make a note of that. And I'm going to make a note under my analysis for what I'm going to use it for. So here, so you guys can see, so I just took some notes as I went. And you're going to do this throughout. So I just said, can Ryan disaffirm? So I made a note, I'm using 6702 and 6703, and I'm using Miller for the rules. And Miller just basically says 6702, and I should write here the page number. So this was page 1, paragraph 3. Then Miller, page 1, paragraph 4. And I made a note, I'm going to analogize to Miller, and I might make a note, not necessary. Easy peasy, right? So I'm just thinking through the issues, making my notes here. And I know that you can annotate on the documents. You might annotate and number the paragraphs or something. I don't know that I would mess with that. See what works for you, see what feels good. All right, now I'm going to go on to the next case. The point is to just stay in the library and stay focused on figuring out what you need to do. And then we're going to deal with the copying and pasting. And somebody asked, you could highlight the rule. You could highlight the rule and you could highlight the analysis if you want to. I think that you can't highlight a lot at once. It can be a bit glitchy. So, but if you want to highlight, yes, you can highlight. So it can just be a little bit glitchy. So make sure that, that you do that. And I'm going to be very cautious about what I highlight. So here I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to just do one sentence at a time. And here it's just basically this rule. And this is what they have for the analysis. And I'm going to highlight one sentence at a time, just because I know it's glitchy. Okay. And you're not going to change the colors because you're not going to be able to. But here's my rule. Here's the analysis. I'm not doing it. Somebody asked if I can do another webinar. Sorry, my schedule is so booked up. I have 17 tutoring sessions a day, 6 to 7 days a week. So sorry, I don't have any time to do another schedule, do another webinar. I wish I did. Okay. But I do actually talk about the February 2020 PT in my final forecast session, just FYI. So I will talk about that PT. So, all right. Now let's go on to the next case. Okay, so now we have Brady, right? We have Brady. So Martha Thomas and her minor son, Craig, appeal the judgment, okay? So in 1999, Brady entered, that's facts. In 2001, Craig obtained a recurring role, that's facts. In 2002, Brady filed suit against Craig for breach of contract. Okay, this is getting to procedure. So this is where I'm going to start reading. After a bench trial, the court found that Brady had proven her case by a preponderance of the evidence and awarded her commissions of $154,700. In doing so, it rejected Craig's defense that the contract was invalid because Craig was a minor at the time he entered into it. Craig appealed from the ensuing judgment. As a general proposition, here's a rule. So this is paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. This is paragraph 5. Parental consent is required for the provision of services to minors for the simple reason that minors may disaffirm their own contracts to acquire such services. According to CFC 6701, a minor may make a contract in the same manner as an adult, subject to the power of disaffirmance. So they're kind of repeating some of the rule. I don't need to say it twice. In turn, CFC 6702 states that generally a contract of a minor may be disaffirmed. I already have this rule. They're just repeating it again. So I don't need this. The law shields minors from their lack of judgment. There's some policy. So I'm like, well, I'm going to just make a note that there's, policy in Brady. And that's in this is page 1 of Brady, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Well, it's really page 2. So the law shields minor from their lack of judgment and experience, and under certain conditions vests in them the right to disaffirm their contracts. Although in many instances such disaffirmance may work a hardship upon those who deal with the minor, the right to avoid contracts is conferred by law upon a minor for his protection against his own improvidence and the designs of others. It is the policy of the law to protect a minor against himself and his indiscretions and immaturity, as well as against the machinations of other people, and to discourage adults from contracting with a minor. So there's a ton of policy, and then here's a rule here. Or no, it's really policy still. Any loss occasioned by the disaffirmance of a minor's contract might have been avoided by declining to enter into the contract in the first place. Simply stated, one who provides a minor with services does so at his or her own risk. One thing just to point out is they give a ton of policy, but they sort of they give this whole huge paragraph on it. And then they say simply stated. So you could really just type this. You don't need to type all of that. This is a hint when they say stuff like simply stated, or in other words, or, essentially, and then they give you it nice and succinct. You can just use that piece and you don't need the rest of it. Then they state this is a rule. So no specific language is required to communicate an intent to disaffirm a minor's contract. This is going to issue 2. So this is Brady. So this is page 2, paragraph 2. A minor's contract may be avoided by any act or word disclosing an unequivocal intent to repudiate its binding force and effect. We find, okay, and then it's there. Now we're talking about the parties. So this is the analysis. So we find that Martha's certified letter was sufficient to constitute a disaffirmance of the contract because it stated that Martha and Craig were terminating the contract. So this is going to be Brady, page 2, paragraph 2. So, yeah. All right. And then there's the third case, and this is obviously going to go to the third issue. So, and I'm not going to go through this one. I'm not going to go through this issue because I want to show you the file. So let me just show you what my white erase board looks like at this point. I'm sorry for all the back and forth. I wish I could. I'm pretty tech savvy, but it'll show up in just a second. So now this is what I have. So can R disaffirm, right? And I added a little bit there from Brady that there's policy. And then I said, did the letter disaffirm? So Brady, page 2, paragraph 2. Sorry, my light's here. And then also Brady, page 2, paragraph 2 for the analysis. So, and then the letter. All right, so the letter, I made a note of that as I skimmed the file. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through I'm going to copy and paste. Now I'm going to do, this is the part where, we're going to just assume that we've read the third one. The third one, the rules are going to come from Laredo and the statutes on agency. The proof is going to come from Laredo. The analysis, I don't know if I'm going to analogize to or distinguish from it yet. So, yeah. So big surprise, Laredo is the third case we're going to use in the third issue. And I just want to point one thing out with Laredo. So with Laredo here this is the analysis of Laredo. So this is all of the analysis from Laredo. And so there's a lot more analysis here in Laredo than there is in the other two cases. Remember that hint that I said at the beginning? Look at how much of a case is devoted to a particular issue, and that will tell you how much time, how like basically how important that issue is. That also tells you how much time to allocate. So the third issue here was really big. A lot of people are like, in the beginning, they're not thinking about their timing so much, or they're not so stressed. So they might take a lot of time on issues 1 and 2. But then you don't have enough time for issue 3 when this is really a really big issue, because you have not only the analysis here, you have some rules here. You have some rules here and some rules up here, but you also have all those statutes that were in the beginning as well. So you have the statutes here. So keep that in mind. So I wanted to just point that out. That's this is one of the PTs I like to teach how to like determine how important or how to identify where the points are. So that's why I like this. One of the reasons I like this PT so much. It's also just kind of fun. Okay, so now I'm going to go and we are going to practice. What do we do to type in the rules and the rule proofs? And it's a bit funky. So let me just I'm going to do it in a Word doc. And I'm just going to have the Word doc open. And I am going to go back and forth, but I'm not going to flip back and forth on my screen. Oh yeah. Here, I'm going to just put the screen on my whiteboard for a minute. So if you guys want to take like a screenshot or something, then you can. So if you need to take a screenshot, go for it. And then I'm going to go back. But this is basically what it looked like. And we're able to get through the library in time. All right, everybody get your photo. All right. So now you're just going to see my answer. Basically as I copy and paste. So first, this is to memorandum to then I forget, then I have to flip back and forth a little bit, which I hate, to Marjorie Turner from applicant date. You guys are taking what, February 25th? 26th, 2025. And then Ray potential right litigation, introduction, analysis, conclusion. And I'm going to have my white erase board just like literally right in front of me to do this setup. And how many minutes just for drafting out what? This is, I'd probably say for drafting some of this is just a few minutes, like what I just did. So below, please find my analysis regarding whether drafting stuff on the whiteboard, you just are doing it as you go. So it honestly doesn't take it goes really quickly. Please find my analysis regarding whether Ryan can disaffirm the contract, whether Janice's letter did disaffirm the contract, and whether Janice is liable for the 8980. That's it. Okay, I'm going to put in my headings. A, whether Ryan can disaffirm the contract, whether Janice's letter did disaffirm the contract, and whether Janice is liable for the 8980. All right. Okay, I just like to have some spaces in there. Conclusion. Thank you for allowing me to conduct this analysis for you. I do it all the time. If I can be of further assistance, please let me know. Okay, whether Ryan can disaffirm. So now I'm going to go back and forth between this. So I'm looking at my white erase board and I'm going down to the statute, and really I'm going to go to the case because it's in the case. So I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, so I copied, I'm going to fix it, and then I'm going to put my site, CFC, this is 6702. Okay, a minor under the care subject to the section 6703. Okay, one thing that you have to be very cautious about is, one thing that you have to really be cautious about is with copying and pasting, I often, when I would type in my rules, that's when I would get a greater understanding. So make sure that my concern is that people aren't going to have as great of an understanding because they're just copying and pasting. Because when you type it in, you're thinking of it. So just be careful that you do understand it. So 6703. Okay, and then I'm going to draft my rule proof. I have my rule proof formula memorized. So I'm going to go down to Miller, and you can copy. I'm going to copy basically what the court said from the analysis, and I'm going to modify it. I don't know if the highlighter will copy when you paste. That I'm not sure of. So it's giving me some trouble with the PDF. So I just had to delete my highlighting. That's strange. So see, like that's a not so great. Hopefully it doesn't do that. Oh, that's why. So that's not so good. So if it does something like that, so I am just going to go back and like look at it and then type it in. So I'm going to say in Miller, is this Miller? Yeah. The court held oh wait, I'm doing it in the wrong spot. In Miller, the court held, did it do it there? Yeah, it does it again. The court held the minor could disaffirm the contract. And I know that because I wrote that in my notes. Could disaffirm the contract because, and I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, there's not more rules. The court held the minor could disaffirm the contract because the purchase was for things that were not necessary. Paste with the icon and select A. I don't know if I can do that, Katya. Oh yeah, there, but you have to do like unformatted text. So, but if it gives you a weird thing, yeah. Keep text only. Yeah. If it does weird things like it just did to me, you want to be able to practice just, okay, what if I can't copy paste? So the purchase was for things that were not necessary for the support because, and why did they say that? At all relevant times, the contracting parties, the parent had an independent and substantial source of income as she expended the money for the good things of life, not necessities. So that's it. So there's my rule proof, right? And you guys just saw I totally had like a weird glitch with it. And I'm like, oh my God, I panicked for a second. I'm like, all right, I just gotta yeah, I'm looking at my whiteboard for the issue. No, I was flipping back and forth and grabbing. So what I just did is I was flipping back and forth and looking at the PDF, which you can't see because I'm just doing this. And so I'm just going back and forth. I'm like clicking over to the PDF and then clicking over to my answer. Yeah, and I'm looking at my whiters. Karen, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Sorry. Okay, so that's issue 1. So issue 2, whether Janice's letter did disaffirm the contract. So my rules here are going to be from Brady. So I'm going to go down to Brady. 1 cite is sufficient for rule proofs. You don't need to cite it again at the end of the sentence. I'm sorry, I'm just clearing out some of the questions. Okay. So whether Janice's letter did disaffirm. So I'm going to go to Brady and I'm going to go to where the rules are. So there was a bunch of rules from Brady. They basically cited the same stuff though. And I know that there is some policy. But policy is something I do if I have time. It's not something that is mandatory. So I might not put all of that in. You could, but now that I'm in Brady, I'm like, oh, okay. I might just say, you know, what they said there. So one who provides a minor with services does so at his or her own risk. So one who provides a minor services does so at his or her own risk. Brady. Okay, whether Janice's letter did disaffirm. So let's get into that. All right. So here we have, did Janice's letter, did the letter disaffirm? So, and really, you know, they do give you all of those rules, but those are the rules on disaffirmance, which are really go to issue 1. So here, I'm just going to copy the new one. And I'm going to copy over 1 rule at a time because it can be glitchy. There, now it's doing it fine. I think it was because I had copied too much, maybe. Maybe I copied too much and that's why I did it weird. So Brady, and then, okay, so now it's working just fine. The way that I had fixed it, the thing is how I fix it in Word isn't necessarily how you're going to be able to fix it in Measure Learning. So you just have to know, okay, what do I do if it doesn't function properly? What happens if you can't use the copy paste? You're going to have to look at it and you're going to have to copy it in. So it's important to like, yeah, or try copying just a little bit. You know, I can go back and try to see, you know, if that, so like I just copied one sentence. Yeah, and it copied over fine. So you just might have to copy a little bit by little bit, which somebody had mentioned in here. So earlier. Okay, so then I'm going to say in Brady. So let's see. And in Brady, they did say, yes, it did disaffirm. The letter did disaffirm the contract for the minor because, and I'm going to copy over the facts and the reasoning that they say. And it's because it stated that Martha and Craig were terminating the contract. That's it. That's it. All right. Does that make sense? So you don't need a whole lot in here. You don't need a whole lot in here. Then you would do the same thing for issue 3. All right. So now I'm done with the library and I don't have to look at it anymore. And somebody asked, should you have a counter argument for each issue? No, you need to have at least one counter argument in every PT. That's it. So when you're copying paragraphs, I wouldn't copy entire paragraphs. You're gonna copy one sentence at a time. I can't speak on the software. You're gonna have to talk to the software. I'm not an expert on. I have not been able to use it. So you're gonna have to contact the company for that. All right, so now I'm gonna show you guys, we're gonna go through the file a bit. Now we're gonna go through the file a little bit. All right, and remember the file is pretty short. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna read it a little bit more carefully now. So first, I think the first part is pretty easy, right? So I want to reread through this rule, right? Because I want to make sure I understand it. So a minor under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for him. So first I'm going to say here, Ryan, I know that they said in the task memo, Ryan is 12 years old, right? So Ryan is 12. Actually, sorry, let me take a step back. I'm going to have my white erase board and my notes, here. So we already read through the task memo. So here's this memo. I'm going to read it in more detail. So I met with longtime client Janice Wright yesterday to discuss a matter involving online video game activity by her 12-year-old son, Ryan. So here he's 12. The GamerTrax website allows users to play a wide array of online video games for free. Ryan, an online video gamer, has regularly done so, an avid online video gamer. The GamerTrax website also allows users to buy certain options to enhance their online video gaming experience. These options include extra weapons, which can increase the user's chance of winning a game, and extra lives, which can extend the duration of a game. To enable users to buy such options, the GamerTrax website maintains a payment system called GamerTrax Treasure. 2 months ago, at Ryan's request, Janice gave Ryan permission to open a GamerTrax Treasure account using her credit card. Janice gave Ryan the credit card number, expiration date, and security code and told him that he could spend no more than $20. Ryan opened a GamerTrax Treasure account. In doing so, he clicked, I have read, understood, and agree to the terms of service, which included the following. I agree to provide a valid credit card or debit card to obtain any options. Remember, this is a 12-year-old reading this. For any online video games. I agree that I am authorized to use the valid credit or debit card provided, either as the holder of the card, if it is in my name, or as an agent of the holder of the card. So there it says as an agent, right? So it says as an agent. So I'm like, it actually says something about, you know, agent in the contract. Or as an agent of the holder of the card if it is in the name of another, which is what was happening here. I further agree that I am authorized to use the valid credit or debit card provided in any and all amounts up to and including the limit established by the issuer. I agree that all transactions I may enter into to obtain any options for any
online video games are final and irreversible. I am under the age of 18 and have reviewed the foregoing terms of service with my parent or guardians and have his/her their permission to agree as stated above. To verify, you may contact my parents' guardians at jwright@columbiavalley.com. GamerTracks contacted Janice and she verified she had given permission. I'm making just notes. So like there, that goes to the agency. Yeah, I wouldn't suggest doing the white erase board on either side. I wouldn't suggest that because it could erase what you did. They verified she gave permission, which is a big deal with respect to the apparent authority issue for the third one, which I know we didn't talk about or go into, but I'm just going to tell you it's important. After opening the GamerTracks treasure account, Ryan started playing an online video game called Galactic Odyssey and obtained a few options. Janice's credit card was charged $20. Ryan continued playing Galactic Odyssey for weeks and obtained numerous additional options. He did not believe he was spending any money to obtain these additional options. He was wrong. Janice's credit card was charged an additional $8,980. When Janice received her credit card bill, she sent a letter to GamerTracks asking for a reversal. So here, she asked for a reversal. And I'm just going to make a note. This is in the memo. And I'm going to make a note here. This is in the memo. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4. So page 2, paragraph 5, or paragraph 4. When Janice received her bill, she sent a letter to GamerTracks asking for a reversal. So request asked for a reversal. They declined. Janet has not yet paid pending consultation. So then here's the letter. I am writing to request. So I'm like, well, she says I'm writing to request a reversal. Request that you reverse the amount of $8,980 for unauthorized charges to my credit card. I authorized my son, Ryan Wright, to use my card to charge no more than $20 for options for online video games. I did not learn until I received my credit card bill that he had used it to charge an additional $8,980 for such options. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. So she makes a request and she says, thank you for your prompt. You know, I'm going to just make some notes as to like the key words that I'm looking for. So, and that's it. That's all that's in there. So now as I go into this, so I just made a few more notes on my whiteboard, just as to like where the facts were. So just basically like here, letter, ask for reversal, memo, request, thank you, what I thought was important, you know, agent. And so like for the A, which is where my analysis is, J, verified she gave permission, memo, page 2, paragraph 4. So I just made a couple more notes there. All right. And you'll see like my arm rubbed on this and, you know, that wiped some of it off. So if you flip it over, it's probably going to wipe a ton of stuff off. So I wouldn't do that. Okay, so now we're back to my answer. And now I'm like, I've read through the file. It's pretty fresh in my memory. So I'm going to, again, go through the rule and just make sure that I understand and that I'm addressing each rule component. So here, so it's a minor under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for him, may contract to pay the reasonable value of things necessary for his support and that of his family, and may not disaffirm such a contract. So here, Ryan is a minor, and thus CFC 6702 may allow him to disaffirm. Okay, so and then the next rule, a contract otherwise valid entered into during minority may not be disaffirmed on that ground if A, the contract is to pay the reasonable value of things necessary for the support of the minor or the minor's family. These things have been actually furnished to the minor or the minor's family. And so it's elements, the contract entered into by the minor when not under the care of a parent or guardian able to provide for the minor or the minor's family. And there's a little typo in the rule, but that's okay. So one who provides the minor services does so at his or her own risk. So here, I'm just going to talk about basically what did they say in Miller, right? These are for the good things in life, not necessities. So here, or I'm going to say additionally, as in Miller, where the items were for, or the contract was for the good things in life, not necessities. Ryan's purchases were for the good things in life and not necessities, because video game options are not necessary for life, period. I mean, that's basically it, right? If you look back up the rule also, you say a minor under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for him, right? Is Janice unable to provide for Ryan? She's not. She can absolutely provide for him. So you wouldn't need to do this, but you could also add, also, Janice, nothing suggests Ryan is under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for him because, and what are the facts? Janice is a long time client of the firm. They stated that in the task memo. And she has a credit card that allowed for $9,000 in purchases, both of which suggest Janice has a substantial source of income as the parent in Miller. This second part is not necessary, but that's how, like, people always want to know, how do I push my answer from basically just to to be a little bit better, and that's how you do it. But you go deeper and use more facts. Thus, and I'm going to just, in my conclusion, I'm going to answer the question asked. Thus, Ryan can disaffirm the contract. Also, the other things that you could have done to really bolster this is you could have incorporated that policy. And I didn't. I'm also not going to spend time fixing my typos. All right, so you're just going to basically do that throughout. So here, as I go through it, so the one thing that I notice is in Janice's letter, and I made a note of this on my white erase board, she doesn't use as strong of language as the contract in Brady. Janice requests a reversal. And because she requested it, Game Retracts declined, right? Because she's asking a question. So it's not as affirmative. And this is a common place to find a counter argument, is when a case comes to the conclusion, I think that her letter did disaffirm. You could come to a different conclusion though. Some people did say that it didn't, but I think that it did because she's merely requesting a reversal and because she says, thank you for your prompt attention to this matter, which suggests she's like not really requesting it. She's just like, basically telling them, take care of it. So our case isn't as, assertive, or like, I don't think we have as strong of a case as in Brady, but it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter because of this rule that no specific language is required. So I'm going to say here, so here, just as the letter in Brady disaffirmed the contract, Janice's letter disaffirmed the contract for Ryan because Janice requested a reversal of the charges. And I'm going to say which indicates she did not approve the charges Ryan made. Yeah. And that she would not pay the charges. Something like that. So when I'm analogizing, you can say it's similar to, I said just as the letter of Brady disaffirmed, but I'm going to do a counter argument here because it's not as strong. So I want to deal with that. That's a bad fact for us, and I want to deal with that. So although Janice, I'm not going to call her Janice did not use language as strong as the letter in Brady, which suggests she did not disaffirm the contract. This argument is unpersuasive because Janice still communicated an unequivocal intent to repudiate because she told GT that she did not approve the charges, requested the reversal, and thanked GT for their attention to the matter. And she thanked them, and no specific language is required to request, what does it say? To communicate an intent to disaffirm. So I have a counter argument there. So thus, make sure that you do a simple conclusion. Thus, Janice's letter did disaffirm the contract for Ryan. And that's it. So the whole point is for you to be able to still stay focused on each step. That's the whole point, is for you to be able to stay focused on each step. So that's where the white erase board comes in, so that I can stay focused on the task memo and make my notes. I can stay focused on, each particular part of the process, and in the library, I can focus just on reading. And then I'm going to take notes. And once I'm done taking all the notes, then I have a period of time. Where I am going to copy and paste in a short period of time. And then I'm going to go and, get to the next step. We want to be very organized and methodical throughout this process. And you can absolutely do it even with the limitations with the new software. All right, now I'm going to get to some of the questions, but I just want to say I have my final forecast session next week. It's on the 11th. Everybody should come to that. I'll put the link in the chat so y'all can sign up. And I'm going to go through the questions in the Q&A. I'm not going to look at the chat for questions. All right, so I think I answered a lot of them. Somebody asked about the external monitor. You're going to have to talk to them, but basically you can't have a computer with an extra monitor. So, if you have just like a tower with the monitor, I think that that's okay. But you check with Measure Learning. I'm not going to be liable for any of that. Yes, somebody asked if law-making bodies ever have plenary power. Yes. Thanks, Nick. You sent it to just me, but you can send it to everybody. All right, I'm just going through some of the questions. Does anybody know if there's a word count limit for the notes box? I have no idea. Yeah, I know that external monitors are specifically not allowed. I'm aware of that, but this person is asking if it's a monitor that's connected to a desktop tower. So it's if you're on a desktop situation where it's not all like on a Mac, it's all enclosed in the monitor. It's all one. Okay, most of these questions are answered. How many times do I suggest for the reading and outlining process? I think that's for the essays. I just go through it basically once very carefully. Somebody asked, would I suggest cutting and pasting a few paragraphs? I wouldn't. As you guys saw, it's a little bit tricky. I would just basically copy and paste a little bit at a time to avoid any issues. Somebody asked, how many essays per subject should you practice from now until the exam? It really depends on how much you've done so far. Ultimately, yeah, it depends on how many you've done so far. So I like people to write in full a minimum of 5 essays per subject, and then issue spot a lot more per subject. But that's in a perfect world. You might not be in a situation where you can do that. Earplug recommendations. I do have a particular pair that I like. I'll put a link in the chat. The ones that I have, well, they're like the pink and yellow ones. I have like thousands of these. Those are the earplugs that I like. Somebody wanted the ask that. A lot of these I answered. Yeah. Okay. I think I've actually answered them. So yeah, I think most of this is answered. Oh, somebody wanted to see Archie. Yes, here's Archie. Here's my dog that's here cheering you all along. He has a like a tie, but I was gonna put it on him. And I don't know about people who have had further access to the mock exams. Yes, you can do a 9x12 white erase board. So, and here's my white erase board for those of you that want to see it. Yeah, you can use a white erase board or an 8.5x11. You can't do bigger than this. But there's my facts. I didn't write a ton of the facts. So somebody says, it seems like you have to remember a lot of the facts to put them in your answer. I did remember the facts. It definitely does help, but like you do it when it's fresh. You definitely just do it when it's fresh. But when you write stuff down, there's a phrase, I'm not writing it down to remember it later. I'm writing it down to remember it now. And it's so on point for this. Because when you just make little notes of things, you are more likely to remember it. All right. I think that's basically all the questions I skimmed through. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. If you're enrolled in Final Forecast already as part of your course, you don't need to pay to re-enroll. You already have it. I hope this was helpful. If you guys need anything else, feel free to reach out, join Final Forecast, and we'll see you guys soon. Good luck, everybody. Good luck studying. I wish you guys all the best. I'm so glad it was helpful. Thank you. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Anna. Everybody thank Anna because she's the one that told me about this white erase board and I love it. So everybody say thank you to Anna. Bye, everybody.